Hey everyone, welcome back to the Christmas Carol Countdown. Today I am joined by my friend Sol, and we are talking about the 2009 Disney version starring Jim Carrey. This film was made by Robert Zemeckis, one of the pioneers of the motion capture art form, which was the animation technique used to make this film. I'm not the hugest fan of the results of a lot of motion capture, especially when it's the main filmmaking technique used, but it's not terrible, and it has been used to great effect in many films. Here the results are fine, but we had some issues with it, which we'll get into in our discussion, namely the many uses of the in-your-face 3D animation, specifically made for watching in 3D, which neither of us did. However, despite my misgivings about some of the stylistic choices in this movie, I will say that script-wise, it's actually one of the most faithful versions that has ever been made, with a huge number of lines taken directly from the book, and some scenes are just about word for word the same. Before we get into the discussion, I just wanted to let you know that in the interest of time, I'm editing this basically 2 days before Christmas, we're going to do another podcast-style review. Sol and I had a great discussion, and I didn't really want to cut anything out, so we're just keeping everything and putting it out as is. Plus, I still have 2 more episodes to finish, and I have a feeling that at least one of them will be after Christmas already. Anyway, let's get on to the main event, my discussion with Sol on Disney's A Christmas Carol. The reason I wanted to do this one with you is because back in July, when I was doing Christmas in July, you had suggested this one as a video we do together.
Mm-hmm.
So, what made you want to do this one?
Well, actually, I thought you were talking about the Mickey Mouse
I
version,
wondered when you sent me that message last night.
and then I was like, oh, it's a Jim Carrey one. Well, even better because I've never seen that one, so it worked out for the
Okay.
best.
Okay. So, you'd never seen this one before.
No.
I think I had seen it once years and years ago. I had forgotten pretty much everything. So,
Yeah, I
it
remember
was
it was in
almost new for me.
theaters, but like the trailers looked too scary for me when it came out, or too creepy, and I was like, I don't know if I'm into that. So I kind of like skipped it, and so I watched it for the first time last night.
Okay. So, what did you think of it?
Well, first things first, I'm gonna mention this is I'm currently on A Christmas Carol, the musical. So this movie, it's really hitting me home because like we only have 3 performances left, so I was emotional watching this film. And so there's gonna be things I'm gonna be comparing to the show I'm in because I'm very familiar with the story now. And I did enjoy the film, but I think there was a lot of little problems.
Yeah, I
That's
felt the
my
same way.
overall. Like it wasn't awful, but it wasn't great.
Yeah, I think I felt the same way. I liked a lot of it, but there was a lot of it that I wish had been done different or done better.
Yeah.
So, what did you think of the technique of motion capture?
Okay. So the only time I've ever liked motion capture was on Tintin because what I did like in Tintin was that yes, the movements were realistic, but the faces were still cartoony. I feel like in motion capture, it just goes from a point where they want to be too realistic, where it looks so creepy. Like, especially the kids, their mouth, there's something very weird about it and a bit disturbing at times. I feel like I was watching like a Barbie movie at times because it felt so not real time, but at the same time too realistic. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think I felt the same way. It just motion capture, the way they do it usually just feels kind of off.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't feel real enough. And I know they're going for like hyper realism,
Yeah.
but it doesn't work very well for me.
No, especially the mouths. The only mouth I think worked was Scrooge's mouth, but everyone else's like mouth, especially the kids, were so creepy looking. I feel like I was watching, I don't know, aliens. It was very strange and uncomfortable. And it's like, oh, I'm gonna get used to it. I never got used to it.
Yeah, I think I kind of got used to it enough by the end, but like at the beginning it was all I could think about. It was just
Mm-hmm.
it's like I wish they could have either done this as straight animation
Right.
or even just doing the backgrounds as CG and then having real people. I think I would have liked that a
Ooh,
lot better
I
because
agree.
there was a lot of sequences in this where you couldn't do that in live action. So I
Mm-hmm.
understand why they wanted to do it as a CG film. But I think it would have been improved so much more if they'd actually had actual people playing these
I'm
parts.
just so surprised because like Disney by this time had seen what, the Polar Express was a flop and all these motion capture films have been a flop. So it's like, why would they risk it? And they know their normal animation is usually a success. So why risking it like that? That really surprised me of Disney to go into. I mean, I do appreciate risks, but that one, it's like, it hasn't worked in the past. So why trying it? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It just seemed like an odd choice. Also, I'm kind of excited to be talking about this film because I actually watched The Grinch for the first time recently, and it was Jim Carrey. And this time it's also Jim Carrey. So I was like, I want a Jim Carrey marathon right now.
And
So,
people have said that the Grinch is basically the same story as A Christmas Carol, so
kinda.
he's playing very similar characters.
That's true.
It's just one is a lot more over the top and ridiculous than this
Oh,
one.
yeah.
If I ever talk about the Grinch, I should talk about it with you because it's very controversial to like that
Yeah.
movie.
The Jim Carrey one or the new one?
The Jim Carrey one.
Oh,
But
I watched
the,
that one for the first time this year. So,
I mean, they both are controversial in their own
mhm.
way. But that'll be a discussion for another
So
another video.
I have a question for you because I'm currently in the musical, and the music it's from Alan Menken, the guy who did all these Disney classics. And
Okay.
as I was watching this film, I was like, man, this would have worked so much better as a musical. Like Disney is famous for doing musicals like this. I know there's some little caroling every now and then. They sing a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not like I'm singing my emotions. And Scrooge's journey is so intense. So I think with having music, it would like there were so many moments in the film where I was like, I'm not getting any emotion at all. And I feel like if they had
Mm-hmm.
music, it would really um, deepen the emotions. And I don't know,
Yeah.
it would have been a big complaint I saw online was a lot of parents were saying this is too scary for kids, which I totally agree. And I
Yeah.
feel like if there was a musical, it would have lightened it up a little
I don't know that music would have helped the Jacob Marley scene because that was like
bit.
I was shocked at how disturbing that was.
Yeah, the jaw part. Oh my
Yeah, that
god.
was awful. I hated that.
Yeah, and in the musical, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm referring too much to it, but that scene with Marley's super cool. Cool. It's called "Link by Link," the song, and actually one of the dialogues in the movie, he goes "Link by Link," and I think if he had sang a song, it would have been less scary for kids, because he just goes. And let's talk about Marley a little bit because I did not like his design at all. His face. I don't know. I didn't like his design. It just felt too simple. Like someone just like, okay, let's create someone like last minute. I don't feel there was like a detail looked personally.
I didn't like a whole lot of the designs in this movie. They were
Mm-hmm.
they were weird. And I don't know if that was because it was motion capture or what, but everything just felt like slightly wrong. Like not
Yeah.
completely wrong, but just slightly wrong. Wrong enough that I was like, I can't like this. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
don't dislike it, but I can't like it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, especially with the Ghost of Christmas Past, I was not a fan at all. First of all, his voice sounded like Voldemort. It was like, no, all the other Christmas Carol versions I've seen, they're like the Christmas Past is like the cheery one. It's usually played by a kid. It's very like happy, and
Hmm.
you have this like Voldemort-ish, and then like the figure, like his face was like not connected. It just felt very cheap looking. Was it just me who thought that?
I think they were going more, they were trying to be a lot more book accurate than most
Okay.
versions because the book kind of describes past as, I don't think that it describes them as a candle, but like on his head is a light like a candle. So
Like the leer.
I think they were trying to go for something in that vein and then they went just like straight candle. And
Mm.
it was really weird. Did you notice that Jim Carrey played like all of the ghosts and Scrooge?
Did he really?
Yes. And he did a good job in differentiating the voices
Yeah.
because they were so different. And Past was like super creepy and like as far as from Scrooge as you could get.
Hmm.
But that was one thing that I kind of liked and didn't like at the same time, because I liked that they were able to show Jim Carrey's range in that way,
Right.
playing all these completely different characters. But at the same time, I was like, I kind of wish they would have had some other actors in here playing these
Mm.
characters.
Yeah, I was looking at the IMDb page, and I remember reading that there's a very small cast, and a lot of them play multiple roles, but I didn't know
Mhm.
about that. And what is with motion capture? Like the Polar Express had Tom Hanks play like, I don't know, 10 characters or something like that. What is it that they pick
I
that?
think it's more the director, because I think the director is the same. I think it's the same
Really?
director.
Huh.
Robert Zemeckis, I think. I think he did both films. So maybe
Interesting.
that's just a thing with him where he likes using one person multiple times.
And I have a question. How many Christmas Carol versions have you seen? Have you read the book? Like,
I if I feel like I have read the book, but it was years and years ago, probably when I
mhm.
was a kid, so I don't remember much of it. Last night I was watching a version with my cousin, and we she had the book, so she went and got it. We were like cross referencing things, figuring out
Mm,
how accurate different things were, because we were
right,
remembering different things that had happened, and trying to figure out, like, was this from the book or was this referencing one of the other versions?
right.
But I don't know how many versions I've seen. I've seen a lot. I
I've
I think
only, yeah, no, go ahead.
I think I watched 9 versions last year,
Wow.
and this year I think I've done 5 so far. I'm not sure, and I'm probably going to try and do at least 6.
Wow.
We'll see. We'll see what I have time for. I I'm really busy, so I don't know if I'm going to have
Right.
time to edit all these
So,
things.
what is it that you think that there's so many retellings of this story after like it's been like 150 years from the original novel? Like, what is it do you think that makes this so easy for people to want to rewatch in different versions?
I haven't thought about that a lot, but I think part of it probably is the fact that the characters are so iconic
Mm-hmm.
that lots of different actors want a chance to be able to play these characters.
Right.
And the story is one that's really familiar, and at least for me, I I know everybody hates remakes, but I
Mm-hmm.
like seeing how different people put different spins on the same
I
story.
agree.
So I think there must be other people out there like that, and they want to try their hand at taking a classic story and putting a new spin on it.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. Like, I think it's such a timeless story that also a bit universal, you know?
Hmm.
And I just think the message is so powerful that
Yeah.
it's never too late to change. It's just such a wholesome story, and like you said, it's a classic. But I do think the message is super strong, and a lot of
Hmm.
people, especially this time of the year, they want to see something like that. So I think that's why there's so many remakes and things like that.
The message, I think it's probably all of those things, because, like you said, it has a great message. The themes of redemption are something that I think most people would connect to.
Right.
Plus, all the things that I mentioned. I think it's probably a combination of all these different things for different people is why it keeps getting remade. But that's fine with me, because I like remakes. Just as long as it's not like a shot for shot remake of something else,
For sure.
which is like the main criticism against a certain company's remakes these days.
Yeah, like the
But
Lion King one.
yes, just as long as somebody is putting a new spin on something, that's what I like to see.
I agree. I still haven't seen the Muppets one. I hear that one's a good one.
Yeah, that one is probably my absolute favorite.
Wow.
Like, of all the different versions I've seen, the Muppets one is the one that I would instantly rewatch. Like, most of these, they're good, they're fine. I don't know how quickly I would come back to them and watch them over again.
Mm-hmm.
The Muppet one, I'd rewatch that one in a heartbeat. It's so good.
Oh, that's
That
so.
one is actually a musical too, so you would probably like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and you mentioned that your play is a musical. I don't think that there has been like a straight musical, at least that I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there is that I haven't discovered yet, but it sounds like yours would be a good candidate to be made by Disney, especially since Alan Menken is doing the
Yeah,
songs.
I 100% agree. Like the music is literally Alan Menken. There's little parts of the musical where you hear like Pocahontas a little bit in the soundtrack and a little bit of Beauty and the Beast. Like you can really tell it's the same guy who has written all these
Mhm.
songs. And yeah, it's like it is a bit scary at times, but it's still in a way that it's not that scary for kids. And I think it really would work. And what I'm really surprised is that the musical came out, I think, in 2006, the one I'm in, and this movie came out in 2009. So this music
Hmm.
was already out. So I'm confused why Disney's like, oh, we already have the music from this dude who every time releases a movie with us gets millions. Why not using his music for this? I just don't understand why Disney didn't get that chance. But I think it would be absolutely amazing if they ever decide to do it with the music. I think it would be
Yeah,
a big hit.
yeah, definitely. I wish I could go see your play. It's
Oh,
you're a little too far away, but
a little bit.
I think it would. I really like the idea of a musical version of this, especially one done by Alan Menken.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope that somebody someday decides to take this script and these songs and turn it into a movie, because
Yeah.
I would see that in a heartbeat.
I agree. I have a question for you. I have it here. Let me see. So we were talking about a little bit about the animation, right, earlier,
Mhm.
and young Scrooge when he's a teen, he looks so old. It's like I was like, he's not a teen. He looks like an old man. That was so weird to me. Like that style choice. Was it just me who saw that?
I didn't really pay much attention, but they were
Mm,
probably trying to go for somebody who looked like the older version of Scrooge, and maybe they just leaned too heavily into the design of Scrooge
yeah.
as he's old. I don't know.
And something I also noticed in that scene, um, something I do like about the show I'm in so much is that you see why Ebenezer Scrooge becomes greedy because in the musical, his dad was taken away from not paying some mortgages or taxes, whatever. So he was taken away, and so he tells Ebenezer, save your pennies," and it's a very traumatic moment. And so from then you see him working on a factory, and so the guy is paying him, and it's like, I know you can go spend something. He's like, no, I'm saving my pennies. So you understand why he becomes greedy. Like he has this traumatic past. And in this film, I didn't really understand why he becomes greedy. Because when you see him as a teen, he's just abandoned, I guess, by his dad. But that's not really an explanation to why he has this need of keeping his money to himself. That's something that did not make sense for me. It's like, why showing this scene? Yeah, he had a sad, lonely life, but that I wish we had seen a reason for him becoming this greedy man.
I'm not sure how much, like I said, it's been so long since I've read the book, so I'm not sure how much of this is from the book and how much of this is things that have been absorbed by the different retellings. But
Right.
most versions have it that when he was going to marry Belle, he didn't want to marry her until he could provide for her financially because she also came from a poor family, and like together they had basically nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So that was where usually the different versions say that his greed stemmed from. It started as him trying to earn enough money for the wedding
Right.
or to be able to provide for her in the future, and just spiraled into him only caring about money because she has that one iconic line, another idol
Mm-hmm.
has replaced me.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's usually the explanation for his
Okay.
greed, but I have no problems with somebody giving even more backstory. I like the sound of the one you're talking about in your play.
Mm-hmm.
I, I feel like that would also make for a good movie too.
Yeah, I mean, we also have the scene of him being greedy about the wedding and all, and then when she leaves him. So that's also similar to this version, but we have this little extra thing that
Hmm.
explains a little bit more, and I feel like that would have been better. Also, since we're talking about this past little moments, the Festival Week dance it's like they try at times to be realistic, but then you have the Fezziwigs almost flying while they're
I
dancing.
noticed that
And
too.
that felt very odd to me because like they're going to this hyper realistic look and then you're having
Mhm.
this something that is not realistic at all. So I felt that was a very weird choice.
There's a lot of that kind of thing, and I think that has to do with the fact that this movie was made in and for 3D
Mm-hmm.
because it was marketed as a 3D film, and it was, as far as I know, it was the first 3D Blu-ray that was released on the same day as the original film. Because usually they would release the film and then wait a while and then release
Right.
the Blu-ray. This was released on the same day, so this was like I think this was one of Disney's big push towards 3D, which I think that they have since realized is not not really worth pursuing as heavily as they were back then. But there were so many sequences in this film that really felt like they were leaning heavily on the 3D. That the dancing
Mm-hmm.
Fezziwig or whoever it was jumping like at the camera, and then later there was like these random action sequences that were definitely not in the book,
Yeah.
but I mean they made them make sense within the context of the story, but you could tell that they were made to show off 3D. Like
Yeah. Just
things were
fillers.
flying at the camera, there was things like the way that the backgrounds would like zoom away and then zoom forward again. It's
Mm-hmm.
just it was made for 3D and it's heavily apparent when you're watching, and it's like it just feels weird when you're not watching it in 3D. It was like this is so unnecessary.
Yeah, no, now that makes so much sense. Like all the flying he does around with that rocket thing
Mhm.
that happens, that makes a lot of sense. Like watching this like in my normal screen, but I understand if you watch it in 3D, it's more exciting, I guess. Speaking of the past stuff that we were talking about, this the past segment of the film, there's this one line that I really, really liked because I know I've been saying negative stuff, but there's this one thing I really liked when he says, so the ghost is like, "Oh, do you remember this place?" And Scrooge says, "I could walk it blindfolded." I don't know,
Mhm.
something the way he delivered that line was very lovely to me. Like it felt very sweet, and I like that moment. I wanted to
Mhm.
say something positive.
Yeah, I think that's one of those. I think that's another iconic line because I've heard that in multiple versions.
Oh,
But
really?
I think the way he delivered that line, the way Jim Carrey did delivered a lot of lines really well.
Yeah,
I think he was a good choice for Scrooge.
I agree.
Some The only thing I didn't think was a good choice was the way he was like very Jim Carrey in some of his mannerisms,
Yeah.
like the way he would do this with his fingers
Mm-hmm.
sometimes.
Yeah.
That just felt like the Grinch or something.
I agree. At times I was like, oh, this is Jim Carrey. It's not
Yeah, it's
Scrooge.
very obvious it was Jim Carrey when he was doing the little Jim Carrey movements or whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
other than that, like his delivery of the lines was great. His accent was good. Like a lot of people can't pull off a good British accent and make it
Right.
believable. But I think he did a great job.
My only problem with Scrooge, I think it's like he looked too old, in my opinion, to the point it's like, yeah, he's changing it, but he's really gonna die like next year, something like that. I feel like, does he really need redemption now? He's about to die. I don't know. I just wish he was a bit younger, because then, I don't know, he could make a bigger impact, I guess. I just feel he was too old. He looked like he's like any moment, like I don't know, he looked too fragile. And from the moment you see him in the beginning and says 7 years later, he looks the same.
Probably he may not be as old as he looks, just his greed and the fact that he like never goes outside maybe has just withered him.
Maybe that's true. Who knows? I just was like, he's about to die. I mean, why wasting all this time with the ghost? But
It's
oh
never
well.
too late for redemption.
I guess. I guess. Speaking of old people and like creepy, like that first scene where the movie starts with Marley all dead, it's like that's a strange way of starting
I
a
didn't like
film.
that scene. I didn't
That
like that scene
was
at all.
a bit disturbing, and I was like, I get it because it shows how greedy he is, that he would like steal this stuff from even his own friend, whatever. But it just felt a bit too much to start, like felt too creepy.
The way he was acting in that scene, the way the scene was shot and just drawn out, it was like
Mhm.
extended camera shots of like him like holding out his hand, wanting money, and then like why did you need to draw this out? Like you could have done the same scene in much quicker. You could have
Hmm.
cut the time in half or maybe even a quarter of this time. It was so long and uncomfortable, and maybe that's what they were going for, but I didn't like that scene at all.
Yeah, no, it was very. Now I understand why parents would be like, I don't want to take my kid to see that because that was
Yeah, I feel
definitely.
like even though this was branded Disney, and Disney doesn't brand things as Disney unless it's going to be like a family thing,
Yeah.
I feel like this wasn't really a family movie. It
Hmm.
like maybe a couple sequences kids would like, but for the most part, this felt like telling for adults.
Yeah, especially with the want and need moment. What
Oh yeah,
those
that
little
was funny.
creatures. Oh my God. And then I didn't know this because in our version, the Christmas present doesn't die, but I don't understand why did Christmas present die in this version. I was a bit confused by that.
I don't know, and I don't feel like I've seen that in any other version either.
Okay, because I didn't know if that was the original thing or not, because I haven't read the original one. But I
Yeah,
was
I
like,
need to look it up again. I need to read the story again,
right.
but I feel like if that was from the book, most versions cut it out. But yeah, it felt weird, and and
Hmm.
even if it is in the book, it probably felt weird because no other version has done it so far.
Hmm.
But yeah, it was a very strange scene.
Especially because he's so jolly and happy, and I
Hmm.
mean, in our musical we have the want and need scene a little bit, but it's like it finishes real quick. There's no dramatic
Yeah,
skeleton and
it's never a long scene in the versions I've
right.
seen. Like Want and Need were there for quite a while in this version, and then they like
Yeah.
grew up, which I've never seen in any other
Yeah, did you
version.
see the lady then getting all tied up and like
Yeah,
I
to
was
the
like,
straight
what is
jacket.
happening?
It was very bizarre.
Yeah. But speaking of Christmas present, what did you think of that scene? Because like I did like him a lot. He was very funny, all that stuff, but I didn't like how it felt like they were watching the screen. I feel like I would have liked it more if he was also flying around. I know he does that like after a moment, but like at the beginning where he's just looking at the floor, it just felt too cheap for me.
It was an interesting choice, but I have a
Right.
feeling that it was a choice made to show 3D again
Mm,
because like there was the stretching effect between the floor and what they were looking at, and just the fact that they were like over them. I'm pretty sure that they did that because it was a way to show off 3D again. Like there were so
right.
many choices in this that were made, you could tell specifically because it was going to be a 3D film. And I
Right.
think that's one that wouldn't have been that if it wasn't going to be 3D.
Hmm. Makes sense. Makes sense. But what I did like in that, oh no, that's in the future. I got it confused. Well, we can talk about it a little bit in the future, unless you want to say anything about Christmas present.
For the most part, Present was fine and kind of
Yeah.
forgettable.
What was he talking about his siblings? I was confused about that part.
I think that's from the book too, because I've heard that in other versions, and I'm not really sure what exactly it's supposed to mean.
Okay. I was like, what do you mean you have like 1,000 siblings? Did I zone out at one moment or something? I don't
Yeah,
know.
I think it's just one of those things where they were trying to be really accurate to the book. Like in
Mm-hmm.
some ways, this movie was extremely accurate to the book, and in other ways,
Not
very
at all.
bizarre and not accurate.
I
But that
agree.
was one that I think they were copying a line directly from the book, and it's not one that I fully understand. Like I'm not sure how ghosts and spirits work in this world because some are so completely different than others. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure that the mythology is meant to be dissected and fully understood.
Yeah. So speaking of the future one, I did like how it was a shadow. I like the hand
Mhm.
thing. I just didn't like how Scrooge becomes small and he sounds like this. And it's like
That was another so bizarre choice.
it takes the drama and the seriousness of the moment because he sounds like a little like like a kid almost, and it's like it just feels like it takes out from the moment. I feel like.
I have a feeling that again, this is another one that was made to show off 3D because when he becomes tiny, it was because there was going to be this huge action sequence through the streets and with the rat and the bottle and the horses.
Hmm.
And I think that the only reason he became tiny was because it was a good way to show off 3D.
That sucks. The fact that they do something just for spectacle rather than story, not a fan of that. If it
Yeah.
had helped the story, fine, but I completely agree with you and it felt like a filler. It's like I actually skipped that part in my computer. It's like I don't care about this. Show me the good stuff. Um I did really like this scene with Cratchit when he goes, he's talking to his family about how Tiny Tim passed away, and he stops at the stairs and he's kind of like looking at Scrooge, and then goes to his room and he just starts crying. I feel like the way he was shot was very beautiful. I did like that moment.
Yeah, I usually like any scene in any version with the Cratchits. They're usually done really well.
Yeah.
Like I in my review of the new Grinch, I talked about Cindy Lou Who, and
Mhm.
Rachel was talking about how she was kind of like the Tiny Tim character, and you were supposed to feel the same way with her, and I
Mm.
didn't. I thought she
Right.
was annoying, but I never feel like that with Tiny Tim.
Right.
And
No.
I'm not sure if that's because he doesn't get as much screen time as Cindy Lou Who did, because she fills up a lot of that movie. But the, he just he and his whole family just feel so much more genuine.
Yeah.
And I, even in versions that I don't really care for, I usually like the Cratchits, and
Yeah.
I usually like Tiny Tim. So this one is no exception. I liked the Cratchits.
I wish we had seen more Tiny Tim. Like, again, I'm so sorry I keep referring to my musical, but we see a lot of Tiny Tim in the musical. And you get to feel more sorry for him when you find out he passed away. And this is also like something I didn't like about this film. It felt like it was rushing. It felt very, although, like when I was watching, I rented it. It's like, oh, an hour and 30 minutes. That's it. And I felt like it was going really, how to say, each ghost was very like quick, 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 because we gotta show all this other stuff we actually don't need. And it's like, and at the same time, I felt like I was bored at the same time
I felt
because
the same way. It felt simultaneously too long and too short.
exactly, because like there were so many things that I wish we had seen, but the pacing of the stuff that we saw was weird. If
Hmm.
that makes sense.
Yeah, I part of me still thinks it comes back to they were trying to fit in all those 3D sequences. If they had cut those sequences, I think it would have helped the pacing so much, because there was
Yeah.
so many times where the story just kind of stopped for a big action piece,
Mm-hmm.
and you didn't need that. Like the
No.
scene with the, I don't know what the scene is called, but where they're like going through his things, and I think her name is Mrs. Dilber, is like trying to
Yeah.
show off his bedclothes and everything.
Mm-hmm.
That sequence needs to like move straight on to the next scene with the next people talking about him being dead.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, they start bashing at a giant rat that's hovering behind Scrooge, and then he's running through the streets, and there's these demon horses chasing him, and it's just like, why?
Yeah.
The story didn't need this.
Mm-mm.
But again, like, I'm sure it would have been amazing in 3D, but I'm watching this on my computer, not on a giant 3D television or 3D
Mm-hmm.
movie theater. It's like, it you when you make a 3D film, you need to be conscious of the fact that for the vast majority of people, we're not going to be watching it in 3D. Like, we
Mm-hmm.
might watch it in 3D once at a theater, but you need to incorporate 3D in such a way that it's not extremely noticeable that it used to be 3D when you're not watching it in 3D.
Yeah, I remember, for example, watching the movie Rio, the Blue Sky movie, and I saw that in 3D and I loved it. But then if you watch it not in 3D, it still works perfectly
Hmm.
because, they have those little gags for 3D, but like it's totally still, what's the word? Not completely relying on the fact that this is 3D.
Hmm.
While
And I
this
think,
film was 100% relying on the fact
oh
it's like,
yeah.
oh, 3D. Maybe because it was the start of 3D, because this film, what, came out in 2009? I don't know exactly when
Hmm.
3D started, but maybe they were like, we're going to do something special for people to come see this. So maybe that was it. But like, I totally agree with you. Like, people now are not watching 3D, and it
Yeah,
really sucks.
yeah, definitely. It just, it made the film worse than it would have been without it. Like,
Yeah.
even though I'm not a big fan of the motion capture faces, the way they turn out in the final animations,
Yeah.
I think it still would have been a lot more enjoyable if they had not put in so many filler sequences just
Mm-hmm.
for the fact that it's 3D.
Yeah.
Like, the movie wasn't a bad movie, it
No.
just, there was so many things that held it back from being a good movie.
Yeah. I think also, completely agree with you. Going to the Ghost of the Future, that scene where what was the lady that works with him that you said the name?
I think it's Mrs. Dilber, at least that
That
was.
one. She's like pretty much saying all this stuff that how she stole all this stuff from him, and then when he comes back to reality, he's like, such a wonderful lady. It's like, why I would fire that lady. It's like, she's gonna betray you. Like, excuse me? Like, I don't know. That part for me is like, why would he say all this nice stuff to her?
I think it's the fact that technically what he was seeing was things that haven't happened yet and they will be changed. So
Mm,
I think the fact that the reason that she was stealing things from him was because she hated him and didn't
right.
care that he died. I think that since he is turning good, at least I would hope that she would be affected by that change and realize that he's not actually a horrible person and then have more respect for him after he's gone. So
Mm-hmm.
I think he's not upset about that because it didn't happen. And he's going to make sure it didn't happen by changing his behavior in the future.
Makes sense. Makes sense. But yes, what did you think of that final scene? His redemption.
Which part?
Just
Like,
all of it when he comes back and he's like helping people again. He's all happy.
um,
Did
it
you feel
was fine.
satisfied by it? Were you like, eh?
It was one of those where he was getting into maybe a little too Jim Carrey, but
Mm-hmm.
just going crazy. And I know there's precedent for that in other versions because sometimes versions like to really go into Scrooge going crazy with joy and happiness. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that was more of that in this one, but it allowed Jim Carrey to be Jim Carrey at some points.
I liked it, but I just felt it wasn't climatic, or I didn't feel satisfied by the
Yeah,
end
it
at
didn't
all.
feel super memorable.
Mm-mm.
It,
Not at all.
but a lot of the movie didn't feel super memorable, so
So yeah, the ending matches the rest of the film pretty much.
yeah.
I mean, we didn't talk much about Fred, which is voiced by, what is this guy's name? He's very famous. Colin
Carrie
Firth.
Ellis. Carrie Ellis?
No, no, Fred is voiced by Colin Firth, the guy from Mamma Mia.
I thought it was Carrie Ellis.
No, my problem was when I was listening to him, like all I could hear was the actor, and
Well, who
like
did Carrie Ellis play then?
let's fact check. IMDb.
Because I know Carrie Ellis was in this, and I was thinking he was Fred.
Let me see. Oh, so that's also another thing. It's like in our version, um, Scrooge kind of dislikes Fred a lot because his sister died of childbirth while giving birth to Fred. So that's
Yeah,
why. But in this one, it's not very clear why he hates him so much. I mean, I get it. He hates Christmas people in general, but like, it's not
the
that, like, he mentions that his sister died, but he had a child, but it doesn't say that she died because of the birth. I think that would have added a little.
I think that that particular detail was from the 1951 version
Mm-hmm.
because that version, according to Rachel, has become kind of a classic because of the weight that they gave to the story. And I think
Right.
that was one thing that they added to the story to give the story more weight was the fact that his sister died in childbirth,
Mm-hmm.
which is part of the reason that he just does not like Fred because he
Right.
loved his sister so much. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't think that they put that in many other versions because it was from a specific version,
Got it.
but I think that it would add a lot. Like I can understand them not putting it in this one because this one they were, aside from all the ridiculous 3D stuff, they were trying to go for a straight, directly from the book adaptation.
Perhaps. Right. I'm looking for the actor. That's why I'm looking down. Yeah, no, Colin Firth voiced Fred. Oh, it's
Okay,
Fred.
who did Carrie Ellis play then? I know he was
Um,
in this one.
I don't see it. Oh, Carrie. Yeah. He played Portly Gentleman, I think.
Really? That's it?
I think so.
I don't know why I thought he played Fred then. Oh well, whatever. I know I read that Carrie Ellis he played against Jim Carrey when two Jim Carrey characters were in the same scene. Like they
Hmm.
would play it once, like if Jim Carrey was past and Scrooge, one of them would be Scrooge and one of them would be past, and then they do it again, and then they'd use the Jim Carrey performances. So
From
maybe
what I see on IMDb, it only says that Jim Carrey was Scrooge, but maybe they don't show the whole thing. So
oh well, I read that on the Wikipedia page,
right.
and the
So
Wikipedia page would have more detail as to how the film was made.
makes
That's
sense.
weird that IMDb wouldn't credit him for more than
Yeah, that's
like he played so
strange.
many characters.
Maybe because there's not enough space.
Who knows? Yeah, I don't know. Whatever.
But yeah, those are my overall thoughts, I guess. What do you rank this film?
Uh, I don't know. Probably not very high.
No,
But maybe if we're doing like 10 stars, maybe a
right,
5 because like it wasn't horrible, but
right.
it wasn't great either.
I agree. I would give it also a 5. There's so much. There was so much potential if they
Yeah.
had only just gotten rid of this whole 3D idea. And
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this one flopped, didn't it? Didn't
I
do
can't
well.
remember, but I wouldn't be surprised.
I mean, you don't hear people nowadays talking about it at all.
No. Yeah, it kind of was forgotten after it was released.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it doesn't look like it was a flop, but it didn't earn as much as Disney's big pictures usually get. It says it has a budget of 175 to 200 million
Mm-hmm.
and it earned 325.3 million.
Hmm.
So it wasn't like a flop, but it wasn't a smashing success like Disney
Mm-hmm.
likes.
Yeah. I think he was a very bad choice of director, very bad choice of style, and they should have done a musical.
Mm,
That's literally my critique. Like, it's such a timely story. There is a huge, not demand, but like a huge following of this story. So there
mhm.
would be a lot of people if they went and saw it, if they had the magic touch of Disney, because this did not feel Disney at all. Like, I honestly, until you told me, it's like, oh, that's a Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey, that's the Disney version. Like, I didn't know that was Disney at all because it
Yeah,
doesn't feel like it.
no, it doesn't feel like Disney. It just it feels like a mishmash of all sorts of different weird choices that
Hmm.
some other animation studio would be trying. Like maybe Sony in one of their weird phases.
Ah.
Yeah, I don't know. It was a strange film. It wasn't
Yeah,
horrible, but it wasn't great.
I agree. So we're not having a lot of luck with our Christmas movies. First, the Nutcracker was horrible. Oh, then we saw this one.
Yeah, I don't know. Somebody needs to like make a really good new version of A Christmas Carol.
I agree.
I'd like I think taking the script for your musical would be a great idea. I would love a musical version.
Yay. Hey, Disney, if you want to hire me, hello.
What part do you play?
I'm on the ensemble, so I play like 5 different things.
Okay. Do you
So
play any of the like main characters or
I play a monk. I play a panto person, which is kind of like a theater person. I play. There's this beautiful number in Christmas Present called Abundance and Charity, where like story characters come to life, and I'm Little Red in that one. And then I am like a spirit to Scrooge during the Christmas scene, the Christmas Present one. I guide him through the different um, houses and things like that, and yeah, and I'm also a maid during the Fezziwig dance. So I'm like,
okay.
yeah, a lot of fun stuff.
Yeah, sounds like a fun time. You get to be all sorts of different characters.
Oh yeah.
Okay, well, I think that's going to be all for this review. Um,
Okay.
I guess we'll talk some other time.
Yeah. Bye. Thanks
Bye.
for having me again.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching our video. If you'd like more from Sol and I, last month I was a guest on her channel where we talked all about another Christmas CGI spectacle from Disney, the Nutcracker and the Four Realms. I'll have a link to that in the description below. In the next episode, I will be joined once more by Rachel Wagner to talk about another more obscure version, Mr. Magoo's Christmas Carol. We'll see you then.